Thank you for coming, and to our excellent panel, thank you for being here. If you're interested in how to unleash the potential of AI, you're in the right room. And before I introduce our panelists, I'll say a few words about what we want to achieve with this conversation. We are increasingly thinking about AI as the artificial intelligence, as the ultimate frontier in data science for anti-corruption. And it is drawing a lot of attention, and it has huge potential for impact. It's worth keeping in mind that, however, that it's one of a range of approaches and tools for anti-corruption work. And all of them are useful. What determines the choice of the data tool that we use is largely determined by the availability of data. The quantity of data, the quality of the data, the reliability of the data. That inevitably, because of the nature of our work, because we rely on data from the public sector very often, amongst other types of data, is the first question that we have to look at. What data do we have available? Then we ask ourselves, what problem are we trying to solve? What corruption issue are we trying to detect more efficiently? What relationships are we trying to identify? What problem are we trying to understand and address more effectively? And then we decide which approach is going to best address that purpose. So it's useful to think of artificial intelligence, or AI, not just as artificial intelligence, but more broadly as augmented intelligence. So that incorporates a whole range of approaches, of data science approaches, from the most rudimentary, the most simple, all the way to the advanced machine learning that we're increasingly seeing being used. And one of the exciting things about machine learning is that it presents the opportunity to identify questions that we might not have even thought to ask, to look for patterns that we didn't even know to look for. So once you get past the data question, and thinking about which tool you want to use, there are still a lot of hurdles to overcome in making use of data science for anti-corruption. Institutional hurdles, policy obstacles, how do you set up the capacity, the capability within institutions to use these approaches? How do you make sure that the information and the insights are used for meaningful outcomes, whether it's enforcement or prevention? And that's what we're here to talk about today. We are going to talk a little bit about the what. What are some of the exciting innovations that we're seeing in AI? But we're really focusing on the how, and that's been an emphasis in this conference, that we know what needs to happen in the anti-corruption space, but what we're struggling with in so many places is how to do it, how to make it happen. And that's what this conversation is primarily focused on today. But I don't want to disappoint those of you who came here hoping for presentations on data wizardry and thought you might find a panel all wearing black polo neck sweaters, which we could have done, but we're not, actually. We will hear about some exciting innovations, but we're also going to talk about the how to make it happen. For those of you in the room who are thinking about undertaking this kind of problem solving. So I'm going to introduce the speakers, and then I'm going to present them with 2 rounds of questions. And then we'll go to Q&A for any questions or comments or observations that you might have. I'll also invite the speakers to respond to each other, because in this area and in this work, we are all continually learning. And I'm excited to hear what the panelists have to say. This is an area where we're working. I should have introduced myself. My name is Alex Habershon. I'm the manager of Prevention, Risk and Knowledge in the Integrity Vice Presidency of the World Bank. And we are in learning mode, and it's a really exciting place to be. So on our panel today, over on the far left, Veronika Borysenko. Thank you for joining us, even though she's suffering from a mild cold, and very kindly agreed to participate. Veronika is a senior international relations and development manager at Transparency International Ukraine. She's been with Ukraine since December 2019 and is responsible, among other things, for international coordination of projects. And she is going to be discussing the experience of TI Ukraine in developing Dozoro, the Ukrainian public procurement monitoring portal. And we're really interested to hear what it took to launch the portal, how the data environment has changed in Ukraine, and how data and AI can continue to be used for transparency and accountability in the current context of conflict and reconstruction, among many other things. Sitting next to Veronika is Marcelo Donolo. He's the head of the data lab in the Integrity Vice Presidency at the World Bank. He's got 25 years of experience at the World Bank, leading technical teams, strengthening and modernizing data management systems, and developing multi-stakeholder programs for innovation and to build organizational capacity. His expertise includes implementing IT-driven initiatives and developing strategies for the adoption of scalable AI systems. And he also has extensive experience in public procurement, risk and change management, as well as systems development. And he's going to be sharing with us the experience within the context of an MDB integrity office, an investigations function, of scaling up, of trying to develop, adopt, and scale up these kinds of approaches. Sitting next to Marcelo is David Szakonyi. I hope I pronounced that right. He's assistant professor of political science at George Washington University and the co-founder of the Anti-Corruption Data Collective. It's a new initiative that brings together journalists, academics, policy advocates, and programmers to investigate transnational corruption flows. His academic research focuses on questions of corruption, clientelism, and political economy in Russia, Western Europe, and the United States. And he's also led numerous investigations into political corruption and published among many places in the Washington Post, Foreign Policy, the Daily Beast, and elsewhere. And I'm really excited to hear about David's work looking at asset declarations in Russia, working with data on asset declarations in Russia, and big data analytics on real estate in the United States. A little bit on how that experience was for you, but also what are some of the policy and contextual obstacles we still need to overcome to use this data for enforcement and accountability purposes. And sitting next to me is Repka, and she's the director of the global TechSprint strategy at AIR, which stands for Alliance for Innovative Regulation. She's been with AIR since January of 2020, and she plans and runs regulatory tech sprints with US and agencies in other countries around the world. So she works with regulators, oversight bodies, in order to help them to adopt these kinds of innovations. And she